166 victims, $32 million vanished. A 14-year prison sentence. These numbers barely scratch the surface of Pi and Pansuk's luxury goods scam. Behind the designer labels and fast cars lay a Ponzi scheme spinning out of control, its collapse inevitable from the start. Strap in. We're about to peel back the curtain on this couple's insane lifestyle, fueled entirely by scamming innocent victims, eventually blowing it all away, one Instagram post at a time. Before I get into all that, I should mention, Pi and Pansuk's Instagram pages have actually been taken down because of their legal troubles. So everything I'm about to describe is just speculation, based on whatever information I could still find. Pi and Pansuk treated the stolen $32 million like an unlimited ATM, paying themselves salaries worth a total of $62,000 monthly between December 2021 and June 2022, while their companies collapsed. This wasn't executive compensation. It was theft disguised as payroll. Their spending revealed complete detachment from reality. They blew $300,000 on a McLaren coupe funded by customer deposits meant for watches, then customized its interior while victims waited for Rolexes. 3 other luxury cars, including a $140,000 Corvette, sat in their garage. Real estate became another money pit. A $2 million Bangkok mansion for Pansuk's mother, and a $120,000 warehouse renovation in Singapore for a store that never opened. Private jets exposed their most blatant excess. A $58,000 weekend trip to Bangkok, last-minute London shopping sprees, all funded by victims. They structured withdrawals to avoid detection. $9,000 here, $14,000 there, funneled purchases through shell companies, and buried $120,000 in renovation costs across 3 invoices. By April 2022, with $9 million in unfulfilled orders, their spending spiraled. Pi bought a $25,000 Patek Philippe while telling customers those models were out of stock. Pansuk dropped $18,000 on Hermes Birkins as victims begged for refunds. Their credit cards racked up $200,000 in personal charges over 3 months. The irony? Their extravagance accelerated their downfall. Bank analysts flagged suspicious transfers, like a $50,000 withdrawal before the Corvette purchase. The McLaren's Instagram posts became digital evidence. Most scammers hide wealth. Pi and Pansuk flaunted it, convinced they were untouchable. Even as police froze accounts in June 2022, they spent $80,000 on jewelry. Days before fleeing, they withdrew $300,000 in cash, prioritizing flash over survival. They converted $500,000 to crypto, but left luxury watches behind, clinging to designer labels even on the run. Authorities recovered just $4.2 million. The McLaren auctioned for $80,000 less than paid. The mansion stayed in Pansuk's mother's name. Every reckless purchase tightened the noose. Hotel staff recognized their shopping bags. Border agents recalled their designer luggage. Their greatest weakness wasn't greed, but the need to be seen as wealthy. That visibility destroyed them. Their spending spree was reckless, but it wasn't random. Because behind every outrageous purchase and Instagram flex, there was a deeper compulsion at play, one that kept them spending, even as the walls closed in. Their businesses, Tradenation and Tradeluxury, dangled an irresistible offer: Rolexes and Birkins at 10 to 20% below market. Why pay retail? Their ads taunted. Hesitant buyers only needed to glance at their social proof: the McLaren in their driveway, the stacks of Goyard luggage in their jet. The illusion was airtight, until it wasn't. By late 2021, customers who'd ordered watches received empty boxes or counterfeit pieces. One victim paid $200,000 for 10 Rolexes, only to get a single fake. The couple's response? More lies. They issued partial refunds, sent fake tracking numbers, and when pressure mounted, they staged a warehouse tour video with borrowed inventory. Psychologists call this social proof bias, when people mistake visible wealth for legitimacy. Pi and Pansuk weaponized it. They bought followers, posed in luxury showrooms, and curated a lifestyle so lavish that doubts seemed absurd. Yet by early 2022, the glitter of their fabricated world began to tarnish. Complaints surged, and Singaporean authorities froze their accounts. The luxury facade, McLaren, penthouse, Instagram glamour, had bought them time. But Ponzi schemes demand infinite growth, and when new money stopped, the illusion shattered. Their $32 million haul wasn't enough. With prison looming, they chose flight, sparking an international manhunt that turned financial fraud into a crime thriller. But as they crossed borders and left chaos behind, the true cost of their deception was only beginning to surface. What unfolded next would blur the line between scandal and survival. Pi and Pansuk's escape plan began in earnest when Singaporean police froze their accounts in June 2022. Pi had been arrested and released on bail, while Pansuk played the cooperative witness, handing over fabricated transaction records. Behind the scenes, they were already plotting their disappearance. On July 4th, 2022, they vanished like smoke in the night, abandoning luxury cars, designer clothes, and phones. Their escape was meticulously planned. They paid a Malaysian lorry driver, Muhammad alias, to smuggle them across the Tuas checkpoint. Crammed inside a dark container compartment, surrounded by cargo, they held their breath as the truck rumbled past immigration. No passports, no visas, just a concealed space and a driver willing to break the law. Singaporean authorities only realized they were gone when victim complaints piled up. By then, the couple was already in Malaysia, hopping between budget hotels and Airbnbs. The Singapore police force moved fast. Within 48 hours, arrest warrants and Interpol red notices blasted their photos and charges to 195 countries, turning them into global fugitives. The manhunt spanned Southeast Asia. Thai police flagged suspicious withdrawals in tourist areas. Malaysian border agents scoured thousands of hours of CCTV footage. Investigators traced their last steps: ATM cash-outs, prepaid SIM cards, a Johor Bahru hotel booked under a fake name. Forensic accountants discovered $500,000 moved offshore days before their escape. Money meant to fund a permanent disappearance. Most fugitives make 3 mistakes: using traceable tech, contacting family, or lingering near borders. Pi and Pansuk avoided the first 2, but ignored the third. Instead of fleeing to Europe or the Americas, they stayed in Johor Bahru, just 20 miles from Singapore. A fatal miscalculation. On August 11, 2022, a Thai tip led Malaysian officers to a dingy hotel near Johor Bahru's center. The couple was found in a room littered with takeout containers and packed suitcases, hair dyed, dressed plainly, but hotel staff recognized them from Interpol alerts. Extradition took 72 hours. Singaporean police marched them back in handcuffs. Prosecutors slapped on new charges: conspiracy, illegal departure, bail denied. Their run had backfired, proving they had no remorse. Behind the scenes, investigators uncovered their full prep: fake IDs, burner phones, research on extradition-free countries. They'd withdrawn $300,000 in cash before fleeing. Most telling? They left luxury cars but took designer watches, likely survival currency. Their freedom lasted 38 days. Found with a Rolex and cash stacks, they had no clear next move. Experts suspect they awaited new passports, but their capture came too fast. Back in Singapore, fraud bail conditions tightened. Banks scrutinized luxury goods transactions. Victims watched with relief and frustration. Millions were still missing. As Pi and Pansuk sat in jail, one question lingered: why flee? The answer lay in their spending records. They'd blown nearly all their stolen $32 million. Running wasn't just about avoiding prison, it was their only option. Their next stop? A courtroom, where the weight of their crimes would finally crush them. Their flight across borders was dramatic, but the real reckoning awaited back in Singapore. Let's uncover what investigators found once the couple was finally in custody. The courtroom drama unfolded with shocking revelations about how Pi and Pansuk spent the $32 million they stole. Pansuk pleaded guilty to 30 charges, while another 150 were considered in her sentencing. The judge handed down a 14-year prison term, one of the harshest for a financial scam in Singapore, reflecting the scale. 189 victims and $35 million stolen, with not a single luxury item delivered. Prosecutors detailed their lavish spending: a Bangkok mansion for Pansuk's mother, a $120,000 fake storefront renovation, and high-end cars like a McLaren and Porsche. Their most brazen splurge? A $50,000 private jet trip for friends. Nearly 80% of the stolen funds vanished before their arrest. Their operation was a classic Ponzi scheme. When complaints piled up, Pansuk sold a consigned Rolex to pay Pi's credit card bills. Their companies had no inventory. Every sale funded prior orders, while they pocketed the difference. By February 2022, they owed $9 million in unfulfilled orders, but kept taking payments for 8 more months, knowing they couldn't deliver. Legal experts highlighted 2 factors in Pansuk's harsh sentence: premeditation and their failed escape. Forensic accountants proved they transferred customer funds to personal accounts within hours. Their attempt to flee Singapore, smuggled out by 2 Malaysian lorry drivers who received 1-year sentences, sealed their fate. The judge backdated her sentence to August 2022, dismissing pleas for leniency. The case triggered policy changes. Courts now treat escape attempts as aggravating factors, and banks must report luxury transactions over $20,000. Victims admitted they'd only checked social media before handing over 6-figure sums. Even after arrest, Pansuk tried one last lie, claiming she could recover hidden assets if granted bail. The judge called it proof of her dishonesty. With Pi awaiting trial, Pansuk began her 14-year term in October 2024. Her $12,000 a day lifestyle reduced to a prison uniform. Their downfall exposes the dark side of the luxury trade. Behind Instagram glamour, many sellers operate without inventory or licenses. Real wealth isn't about flashy cars. It's about sleeping soundly, knowing your money wasn't stolen from someone else's dreams. Pi and Pansuk's story follows a familiar pattern seen in financial crimes. What starts as a scheme becomes an addiction. Experts agree Ponzi schemes always collapse. The math is simple. You need an endless stream of new victims to pay old ones. Yet time after time, smart people convince themselves they're the exception. So why did these 2 think they could beat the odds? The answer lies in Pansuk's history. Before the Singapore scam, she faced allegations in South Korea for similar luxury goods frauds. Behavioral economists call this pattern repetition, when criminals reuse tactics that worked before. Pansuk knew how to manipulate luxury buyers, understanding people would ignore red flags for steep discounts. There were 3 psychological factors that drove their downward spiral. First, they were caught up in a get-rich-quick mentality, which short-circuited their rational thinking. They weren't interested in building a legitimate business. They wanted overnight wealth. Second, those early fake watch sales gave them a false sense of security, distorting their risk assessment and making the whole scheme seem sustainable. And third, luxury itself became addictive. Every time they bought a McLaren or took a private jet flight, they got a rush that ordinary earnings just couldn't match. Their greed manifested in reckless decisions. Like drug addicts chasing a high, they escalated when they should have stopped. Like arrest photos show them wearing Gucci in jail cells, the fantasy persisting to the end. Their money laundering was amateurish. Structured cash withdrawals, overseas property under relatives' names, destroyed records. They weren't masterminds, just addicts who couldn't stop spending long enough to cover their tracks. Had they channeled half their hustle into legitimate work, real success was possible. But fraud's high-risk, high-reward rush proved irresistible. Like all Ponzi schemers, they doubled down instead of walking away. Their 14-year sentence proves fraud delivers temporary thrills with permanent consequences. The house always wins when you play with stolen chips. Ultimately, their downfall wasn't about being caught. It was about being unable to stop. Greed isn't logical. It whispers that one more victim will fix everything. By the time Pi and Pansuk realized that lie, their only escape route led straight to prison. If greed blinded Pi and Pansuk, it also blinded their victims. So how can you avoid falling for the next luxury scam that looks just as convincing? The Tradenation scam worked because Pi and Pansuk were experts at appearing legitimate. Their approach followed a familiar pattern seen in luxury scams around the world. They appealed to buyers' dreams while hiding the truth. Let's talk about how you can spot similar schemes before you become a victim. First, watch out for unrealistic pricing. Luxury watches and designer bags have well-known market values. If you see a Rolex or Hermes piece being offered at 20% below retail, it's almost certainly stolen, fake, or, like with Tradenation, doesn't exist at all. One victim even admitted they knew the prices were too good to be true, but bought anyway, thinking they'd found a secret source. Here's the reality. There are no secret sources in luxury retail. Next, be wary if you're asked for full prepayment. Legitimate sellers usually require a 10 to 20% deposit, with the rest due when you get your item. Pi and Pansuk, however, demanded full payment upfront, pressuring buyers with claims of limited inventory. Investigators found cases where customers paid $200,000 for watches that never existed. Scams that require full prepayment have a 92% non-delivery rate, compared to just 11% for sales based on deposits. Another warning sign is a lack of physical proof. Always ask for real-time photos or videos of the item, ideally with a dated tag. Tradenation would send stock images or claim the goods were in transit. One watch dealer who avoided their scam shared his rule. If you can't FaceTime with the watch in hand, don't send a wire transfer. Missing credentials are another red flag. Pi and Pansuk had an office in Tanjong Pagar with polished displays but no actual inventory. Their second-hand goods dealer's license was only for money laundering compliance, not for real sales. Social media can be a trap, too. The couple's posts with their McLaren and private jet dazzled buyers and made them ignore the basics. A forensic accountant noted that victims often said, "They seemed too rich to need my money." But real dealers focus on product knowledge, not showing off their lifestyles. Finally, always insist on physical verification. Meet at the seller's store or use an authentication service. Tradenation dodged this by claiming security concerns, even as they hosted customers at their mansion in Bangkok. One merchant who lost $320,000 later admitted, "Escrow would have held funds until delivery, but I rushed to secure the deal." The formula hasn't changed because it works. Until buyers demand evidence, real dealers welcome scrutiny. Scammers fear it. That distinction could save you next time a too good to be true deal appears. Spotting the warning signs is crucial. Their Instagram glamour tricked buyers into skipping basic checks. Always verify inventory, use escrow services, and walk away from deals too good to be true. Now they trade designer clothes for prison uniforms, a stark reminder that scams always collapse. Protect yourself by staying skeptical. Hit subscribe to keep learning how to spot deception before it spots you. Stay sharp. And for more fascinating lives into the rich, famous, and infamous, click on the next video here.